I grew up as a Depression child. I was born in 26 and the Depression was 31. And we were in a deep depression. And there was not much money around. Kick the can was you go out on the street, get your friends together, get two teams, get a can, and play kick the can. Have goals, just like hockey. And we played a lot of kick the can. It was not necessarily as bad for us as a grandfather's company. It's still pretty bad. The only thing we had going for us, Dad had bought the house, so we didn't owe anything on the house. And this went on for 31 until about 38, 39, when the war started. And this is what brought everything to a focus and started everything going again, was the war. Really, if we hadn't gone to war, we might still have never gotten out of the Depression. A lot of people claim he started the war Roosevelt started the war to get the country out of the Depression. Might be some truth to that, I don't know. What happened was that I had my eyes at 20-550. I was what they call limited service, 1AL, and I had gone to military school, graduated in 44. Here I am, 6'2", pretty good health, country at war, and I'm walking down the street with no battle scars, so to speak. So it wasn't 4F, so how it went was 1A, 1AL, and 4F. And 1A was completely able to go into the service. 1AL was that they could go into the service in a limited capacity, meaning that more than likely you wouldn't be sent overseas, or if you were sent overseas, you were not sent into a combat position. And 4F was that fact that you couldn't do it. You're physically unable to do it. So I found out that there were a bunch of limited service people ahead of me. They're taking one a month. And there was like 60 ahead of me or something like that. So I never would get it. Well, Dad heard about this organization called the American Field Service up in New York. And the American Field Service had a contract with the British Army to drive an ambulance. He signed a contract for 18 months. It was their responsibility to take you and send you where they wanted to send you, and also their responsibility to bring you back. Pay was not very good. Pay was $30 a month. And it all started back in the First World War with the Princeton Ambulance Service. They had to buy their own ambulance, buy their own uniforms. After the First World War, so the saying goes that people didn't know what to do with themselves. The people in the Princeton Ambulance Service did nothing except sit around all day and drink. So they decided to start the American Field Service with slightly different features. One is that you're under contract with the British Army. You sign a contract to serve 18 months. They would determine where you would go. The two major active fronts were Europe and India. And at the time, I didn't know where I was going to go. I found out when I got to New York, I found out I was going to India. They sent us to England on the Queen Mary. It had 15,000 troops aboard. That's more than it's supposed to carry. So we took off in this big ship. At that particular time, the tugs were on strike. You're not supposed to take a boat of that size out of New York Harbor without tugs. So the captain said, well, I can't put up with this. I have my instructions are to take this boat over to England. That's what I'm going to do. Now, the first thing was that he did not know how he was going to take that boat to England. In other words, his itinerary was not known to him, and would not be known to him until he got outside in the territorial waters. Then you would open the sealed envelope and you would tell him which way it's going to go. And the reason for that is that boat could go 40 miles an hour. It's a fast boat, big, lot of engine on it. It could go, actually, that's not true. It could go 40 knots. That's 44 miles an hour. So no other boat could keep up with it. So he never went in convoy, always went by itself. And so consequently, the captain each time was given a different way to go. With battery subs, with diesel engines, they traveled on top of the water and they fought under the water. In other words, they only go 3 to 4 miles an hour underwater with batteries. All the speed came from diesel. Well, later they developed this snorkel type stuff. This was before the snorkel. And the reason I bring this out is because it really didn't have the ability to chase either one of the queens. They just didn't have that ability. I mean, if it's only go 8 or 9 miles an hour on top of silver diesel. So, I mean, and so, they were not a very effective. They would have to know they have to know which way the ships are going to go, if they're going to sink them and all that. Well, so what they did with the Queen, they just sent them different ways. So what they did to us, we left, and this is kind of interesting, we left the New York harbor. The captain by himself took the Queen Mary out with the help of little tugs. I remember standing on the deck watching all of this. They announced it all that. They ran it out into the ocean, and they ran into a terrible storm. And the captain said, "This is not safe. I got to take this boat back." So the first time in the history of New York docks, the captain docked at Queen Mary with no tugs. And I was standing on the deck watching all of this, and and of course, he had to go very slow because they had such momentum involved. I didn't just knock anything ahead of this to pieces and so on. We would creep, the boat would go like this. Well, he did it. Then he took it out again, and then we left. Then we went down to the state of Florida. From New York, went down to Florida. Turned around, came back, went up, came up and around, came up into the North Sea, ran in 100-mile-an-hour gale winds. Well, that was a mess. Turned around, came back around, came around, and swung in and came into Glasgow, Scotland. So at Glasgow, they didn't have any docks big enough to dock it. So they tendered us in. They docked it outside, and then they used small boats to take us ashore. We were given the privilege of being an officer because of our volunteer status. The British Army felt it was only fair that we could get to eat with the British officers, the British mess. So we were given a second lieutenant rank. So everybody in the field service had a minimum second degree rank. So nevertheless, they took us down to a officers' camp 20 or 30 miles south of Glasgow. We waited there a little while until another ship came called the Winchester Castle. And this was a smaller boat. We had docks where we were at. So we all then got aboard the Winchester Castle. There was about 1,000 people aboard the smaller ship. And then the smaller ship then turned around from Glasgow and went back, came around and went through the Gibraltar. All the lights all the windows were sealed. You couldn't see any lights. And we traveled at nighttime with no lights aboard ship. Well, that's not true. We had lights, but they were you couldn't see them. This took about 30 days. And we went from Glasgow, Gulf of Aden, and then that's the beginning of the Suez. And then we went through the Suez down to the Red Sea, to Bombay. For a 19-year-old, it's a pretty high adventure.